Serving in the United States Senate has been the great honor of my life. I know in my heart that nothing I have done as a senator, nothing, has brought this honor on this institution. And I am confident that the Ethics Committee would agree. Nevertheless, today I am announcing that in the coming weeks, I will be resigning as a member of the United States Senate.
That was former Minnesota Senator Al Franken resigning from office after charges of sexual harassment surfaced on the heels of his scandal. Lieutenant Governor Tina Smith stepped in, which is not the ideal way you want to get promoted. I didn't read that right, but whatever. Please welcome junior senator from the great state of Minnesota, Tina Smith. Senator, I call you Senator, right? You are Senator.
Or you could call me Tina.
Well, no, I'll call you Senator. I mean, you have to do this again in November, I presume.
That's right.
But for now, you are Senator. And you came into the position under very unusual circumstances. A lot of people like me were upset that Senator Franken resigned without due process, without any kind of ethics investigation. Do you think that that was the right call for him?
Well, you know, it was an extraordinary moment, and it was a really tough moment, too. I mean, first of all, Al was a champion for Minnesota, and he was a champion for progressive issues around the country.
Right. I know.
And also, Al is a friend of mine. Al and Franny are friends of mine. But when this all happened, and Al had to make a decision, and he made the decision that what was best for him and his family and for Minnesota was to step down, I was asked to step up, and so I find myself here today.
Yeah. But in his resignation speech, Franken pointed out the double standard, that Trump, a man who's bragged on tape about sexual assault, is still in the office. We all know that. So would you call on President Trump to resign over his allegations?
Well, first of all, let me say that there are many, many differences between Al Franken and President Trump.
Yes.
It's not for me to second-guess the decision that Al made. And, you know, I would have liked for the Senate ethics process to run its course, but, you know, that didn't happen.
It didn't happen. Do you think that that Mueller, or we said this before, we're talking about this, which one will take Trump down, do you think, if at all? Mueller or Stormy Daniels?
These are the games we like to play.
Yes. Well, first of all, on the Stormy Daniels issue, I mean, can we just say that no woman should be dealing with being physically threatened?
Yes.
Ever?
Ever.
And
man or woman.
Exactly. And, you know, yesterday we heard new things about the Mueller investigation going after the Trump Organization and doing subpoenas for the Trump investigation. So I think that we ought to think about this as a nonpartisan issue. This is about the future of our country and who is our president. And all of those investigations, you know, need to run their course. Not, you know, without political things getting in the way of them.
Well, that's impossible.
See,
now you're asking for a miracle.
I know. I'm new to the Senate, so I still have that innate optimism that
don't worry about it. It won't last.
This is exactly what somebody said to me when I was first here, so I think I might have been born this way, so we'll find out.
Senator, given the seat you've stepped in to fill, do you feel a unique obligation to kind of further the women's movement in the Senate and in politics in general? Is that an extra hat you'll wear, and is that even fair to expect that from you?
Well, you know, women have all sorts of responsibilities and obligations in any job that we have, whether it's in the state Senate or whether it is being in the news or wherever it is. We always have, I think, extra obligations. That's just the way it is.
We sure do.
You know, and also in my career, I've spent a lot of time working on women's health issues and women's economic issues. So I feel that responsibility really strongly, even though the circumstances of coming into the Senate. I'm now the 22nd United States Senator, which is pretty awesome, I think.
Yeah. Minnesota has 2 female senators.
Yeah, that's right.
to say.
I do think it's fascinating that there are only 22 female senators, actually, in my view. People didn't even know who you were when you took over. And I heard Senator Graham, who is a friend to the show, even asked you if you were Senator Langford's wife at the State of the Union.
This is a classic moment. And I just talked to Lindsey about this today, he's a really, really nice guy. So it's the night of the State of the Union, and all the senators gather on the Senate floor, and then before we get sort of, we troop over to the House chamber for our, for the State of the Union. And I'm, standing around with Lindsey Graham and James Lankford, who's the senator from Oklahoma, and Lindsey looks up at me and he says, "Now, are you James Lankford's wife?" And I said, "No, I'm not. I am Minnesota's newest United States Senator." Lindsey, because he's a great guy, he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry. I must have my..."
Wow.
So there he goes. Yeah.
What a classic story. So Joy just mentioned that the midterms are coming up in November. You're up for election. We just saw in Pennsylvania, Connor Lamb won in a dominant Republican district. But he was a moderate Democrat, but he also won by denouncing Nancy Pelosi. And you've seen there's been reports that at least a dozen other Democrats plan to take this strategy into the midterms of denouncing Nancy Pelosi. Do you think that's a winning strategy for your party?
Well, I think that a winning strategy is what happened in Pennsylvania. A district that Donald Trump won by 20 points. We won, and that's good news. That's good news.
But he did it by denouncing Nancy Pelosi.
Well, he did it by being himself, by representing the district, by talking about base economic issues, which I think is the winning strategy. What matters to people in their economic lives? How do I pay for child care? What do I do about my college debt? How the heck am I going to pay for health care costs that keep going up and up and up? And he talked about those things.
He talked about those things, but he got money from the Democratic committees to sponsor particular ads that were also denouncing Nancy Pelosi. Is it a winning strategy for the Democratic Party?
I think the winning strategy is to represent your district and not come into Washington acting like you're already part of the Washington establishment.
Is Nancy Pelosi now the new Wicked Witch of the West, like Hillary Clinton was made out to be?
Well, you kind of wonder about that. I'd rather talk about the, Wicked Prince from Wisconsin, but
let me say on,
Did you say the Wicked Prince from Wisconsin?
I think it's really important that we focus on that Pennsylvania district because it was won by 600+ votes. And, we often say every vote matters. The only poll that matters is election day. Well, this just proved that is actually true.
Right. It's about, what happens at the grassroots, talking to people, having conversations with people.
I was not surprised by how nationalized this race became. It became about Trump and Pelosi. Do you see the race? Do you see Connor Lamb's victory as a referendum on Trump?
I think that the reason that Connor Lamb won is because he said, this is what we need to do in Pennsylvania. And trust me, I was in the Senate. It wasn't like I was watching every minute of the election. But I can say in Minnesota, people will decide who they want to have represent them in Minnesota, not so much based on how they feel about the president, and more about whether they feel that the person that they're electing, I hope will be me, is listening to them. And, listening is a little bit of a lost art these days. And I think that is what matters.
Okay, thanks so much for coming by, Senator Tina.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you, too.